From Fox 13, the most powerful name in local news, this is Good Day Tampa Bay.
6 weeks later, has the case been made? Both sides make their final argument this morning in the Casey Anthony trial. And joining us again this morning is attorney Felix Vega with the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office. Welcome back.
Good
Felix.
morning, Nerissa.
Okay, so as I just said, we are winding down, but no holidays for the jurors, that's for sure.
No, they're going to be working straight through it, and also Judge Perry made it very clear that he wants this case to get to the jury as soon as possible. He's scheduled all day for closing arguments, and he anticipates the jury possibly getting the jury getting the case tonight and then working through tomorrow.
Okay, so and the big question, as I brought up earlier, was whether or not Casey was going to have to testify. Turns out she didn't. So how is that going to make her look to the jury in your eyes?
Well, we have a couple graphics we want to pull up right now. They actually cannot consider the fact that she did not testify and whether or not they're going to determine her guilt or innocence. The state, as you can see there, still has to prove their case. The defense does not have to disprove anything, and she's not required to prove her innocence. Not testifying, they can't view that as an admission of guilt. And she has a fundamental right not to testify that's guaranteed by the Constitution. The judge is going to instruct them, and he also issued an order yesterday telling the lawyers that they cannot comment on that in their closing arguments. It's one of the basic rules of criminal procedure, and it's one that they have to follow all the way through the end of the trial.
Now, from your experience as a prosecutor, why would you think that she wouldn't talk?
There's any number of reasons. Her credibility was so damaged from minute one with telling the lies that before when Kaylee first went missing to all the cover-up that went into it afterwards. She might not have been comfortable on the stand. They might not have felt confident putting her on the stand. And really, they were able to poke a lot of holes in the state's case through the other witnesses. And if you really can do that without calling her, that's usually a better strategy for the defense.
So chances are Baez is saying, let's play it safe. Just play it safe here.
Right. They're sticking with their strategy that they were able to get a reasonable doubt through other means.
All right. We also know now that the state is still trying to rely on chloroform and duct tape as the cause of death to get to first-degree murder. But no one really has testified on how Kaylee died. So is that another big issue that the jury will have to deal with?
The number one issue that the jury has to deal with, first-degree premeditated murder, is what she's actually charged with. So they have to get to an act that caused the death of Kaylee Anthony. They have to make that determination. They also have to talk about premeditation, and that goes to all the witnesses and all the evidence that they saw, from the body farm evidence to Jose Baez putting Dr. Spitz on the stand, and whether or not the bones were found the way that they say they were found, or if Roy Kronk moved them. Those are all things the jury's going to have to now start talking about and going back over all 33 days of testimony, which is going to be a big task for them to do.
Okay, let's talk about what's going to happen when the jury starts deliberating, because that's coming up. What's the process? What are they going to have access to? They're allowed to take notes, right?
They have taken notes all throughout the process of
Can they use them?
They can take their notes back in the jury room. Now, they're going to be instructed they have to rely on their own recollection of the facts and the testimony, which after 33 days of sitting there and watching all this, that's a lot to remember. So the big question is whether or not they're going to have access to some transcripts. Usually they have to make a request of the judge to have testimony read back to them, but they're also going to have access to that huge amount of evidence that we've seen laid out in front of the judge in this case all throughout the rest of the trial. So the first thing they're going to have to do, the alternates are going to be dismissed. So any good reporter like you are would be running out there to find out if they're going to talk to anyone. They don't have to, but then they're going to have to elect a four-person, probably take a quick vote to figure out where they're at, and then decide what they're going to do in terms of what evidence they want to talk about, what testimony they want to talk about, and basically go around the room until they reach a verdict. Again, like we talked about last week, it's got to be unanimous.
This is a lot of pressure. It would be hard to be a juror. I mean, all eyes are watching you, and the world is watching you. It's your opinion that's going to determine the fate of this woman, and
that's
very sensitive topic. It's a very stressful time.
And it's also stressful, but you got to remember, they're going to be in there until they reach a unanimous verdict.
And how hard is that?
Exactly. Sheena brought up a good point when I first got here this morning. How long is it going to take for them to deliberate? Exactly. That's anyone's guess. They're
Maybe
going to take
another 33 days. You know?
Right. They could be. They're going to take their time.
It's hard enough to get people to all say in one room that they like, macaroni and cheese. I mean, how are you going to get this is somebody's life here.
Exactly. So it's a big task for them to get to, and they're going to take it very seriously, as all jurors must do.
This is the process, right?
This is the process, and finally winding down. And it's good, like we talked about last week, seeing all this unfold. It's been a very public trial, and to see behind the scenes, we've talked about it. I've been able to give you a lot of insight into what goes on. So I hope the public is understanding and being educated by this as much as it is it's been entertaining and also a ratings getter for a lot of channels.
Well, you're definitely teaching me something. I think the rest of us here in Tampa Bay. Thank you, Felix.
Thank you, Nerissa.
And he is not done yet. We want to hear your questions. So Facebook me your Casey Anthony trial questions, and Felix will answer some of them in our 8 a.m. hour. We also have a poll on Good Day Facebook page. We did that, asking whether you think Casey will be convicted. I'm sure a lot of you have an opinion on that already, and we're going to have the results on that in our next hour. So Facebook me, Nerissa Prest on Facebook. Okay.
Actually do realize what's going on.
I honestly don't know which way it's going to go.
One only wonders what the jury will decide with so much to consider. Anthony Miller, Fox 13 News.
And our weekend attorney, Felix Vega, joining us again this hour. Welcome back, Felix.
Thanks, Nerissa.
Okay,
Good to be here.
Lots of questions going on. Everyone wants to know, when is the verdict going to happen? Are we talking hours, days, weeks? Not very easy to predict, is it? I can't imagine it's going to be hours.
No, it's not going to be hours. No one can predict it. And this is a question that people keep asking me. If you're a defense attorney, if you're a prosecutor, if you're the general public, no one can predict how long this jury is going to deliberate. They have a lot to go over. They've got 33 days worth of testimony. They have a mountain of evidence that they can look through. There is going to be transcripts they might want of different testimony that was given during the course of the trial. So there's a lot that they have to go through. Another question people keep saying, they're going to convict her, right? We don't know. We don't know. And the people in Anthony's package are representative of what the jurors may be going through right now.
Yeah, tough call. And now we want to open it up to our Facebook viewers. We had very interesting comments posted online. Here's one from Jay. He wanted to know what happens if there's a hung jury, or how long will it take before they say it's a hung jury?
This is going to be up to Judge Perry how he wants to handle this. Typically, if there's, when they come back and they vote and they say to the judge, look, we're split 6-6, we don't know what we're doing anymore, we can't make up our minds. He's going to give them what's called an Allen charge. Basically, he instructs them to go back in the jury room with a fresh set of eyes, everyone go around the table and explain to everyone else why you're voting the way that you're voting for whatever conviction you're voting for. So they'll go again around and around and try and figure out if they can make a decision. If again they get to a point where they can't make up their minds, it's up to the judge when he wants to declare a mistrial at that point, and basically the case would have to start all over again.
And she would go back in jail in the
She
meantime?
would stay in jail in the meantime, more than likely. Again, it's up to the judge, but that's something that we're hoping we don't get to, because I think everyone in this case, including all the families involved, want some sort of finality in the end.
So I'm sure the mistrial is not good news, because
No.
it's starting from square
No
one
one likes
again.
mistrials.
Okay, so we also have the results of that Facebook poll we told you about. So far, we need you guys to vote, but so far, 19 say she gets convicted of first-degree murder. 15 say it's going to be a lesser conviction, second-degree murder or manslaughter, they're saying. And then 3 people think she's just going to go free.
And this is a good example of what the jury's probably going to think and what they're going to go through when they first get in there, because you got to remember,
You're dealing with different opinions.
Right, and these people have not been allowed to talk about this case whatsoever in the 33 days that all this testimony has been going on. So they're going to get back in the jury room and probably look at each other and say, what did we just sit through, and what's going on? And then at that point, they really need to focus. They'll take an initial vote, and probably we split along the lines like our web poll was, because everyone's going to have a different opinion at first. They're going to want to know, like, okay, who thinks it's first degree, who thinks it's second degree, who thinks she's not guilty. Then they're going to go back through all the evidence and then really start to hunker down, so to speak, and look at all the evidence and figure out how they want to ultimately decide this case.
And you have to remember, these people aren't experts. They're people like you and I mean, housewives. I mean, it's a cross-section of people. So much information to digest, and you have to get it right. It's a big job to have.
It's a huge job, and you're absolutely right, because these people are a cross-section of, well, Pinellas County in this case where they were chosen, but they're people like my mom, your mom, like our parents, our friends, that don't have law degrees, that don't have journalism degrees, that aren't involved in this every day. And they've sat there and listened to all of this mountain of evidence, all this testimony, all the drama that went on in this case. And so they're really now have to take a step back and really focus and really start from minute one again and go through all this testimony if they're going to do it right.
Unlike us, we can just click it off. They can't.
Right. And we might be sitting here talking about this next weekend. Who knows?
Okay, well, thank you, Felix.
Thanks for having me, Nerissa.
Good talking to you. Can't stop. But
no, absolutely
so much to talk about with here. Much more on this case throughout the weekend, of course, right here on Fox 13. And now let's move on to some other news.